It's strange how a quiet night can still feel dangerous, how the air can sit still, but your chest can feel tight, like the world is whispering that something is about to go wrong. That's how this night begins. A warm southern evening, the kind where porch lights glow soft and the road looks harmless. But for a black man driving alone, harmless can shift in seconds. My name is Simmons, and you're watching Chronicles of Black. If you're here for stories that speak the truth, stories that carry real pain, real strength, and real warnings, make sure you subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here. Marcus Hale had waited months for this moment. Coming home, breathing familiar air, touching the steering wheel of his own car after too long on desert roads and concrete bases. He wore his army uniform because he hadn't even changed yet. His duffel bag sat half-zipped in the back seat, holding sand, sweat, and memories he didn't want to unpack tonight. He wasn't thinking about danger. He wasn't thinking about survival. He was thinking about dinner at his mother's house. Her smile, her steady hands, the comfort he had dreamed of during long, sleepless nights overseas. He drove through the part of town he grew up avoiding, not because he was doing anything wrong, but because too many people who looked like him had learned the hard way that patrol cars in this neighborhood didn't wait for trouble. They created it. Streetlights flickered like they were breathing, giving the road a pulse. Houses sat close together with chipped paint and quiet windows, and the shadows stretched long across the pavement. Marcus knew the stories. Everyone did. But he kept moving, hoping the night would stay calm. He didn't speed. He didn't drift. He didn't touch his phone. That's what happens when you've been trained to stay aware. You move like every decision might save you. You think about hands, pockets, voices, tone. You think about exits. You think about threats that pretend to be routine. Then he saw it. A police cruiser pulling out from a side street, slipping behind him like it had been waiting just for him. Marcus felt his stomach clench. Not panic. Just that familiar pressure that comes with being watched for the wrong reasons. He checked the mirror. The cruiser stayed close. Too close. He checked his speed again. Perfect. He touched the buckle of his seatbelt. Secure, he whispered under his breath. Not fear, just frustration. The kind that builds over years of knowing exactly how this story often ends. The cruiser didn't pass him. It didn't turn. It just followed. Quiet, steady, waiting. Then the lights snapped on. Blue and red spun across the hood of his car like a warning flare. Marcus felt a sting behind his ribs. He pulled over slowly, like he was handling a Bambi, because that's what a black man's body becomes during a stop like this. Something fragile. Something that might go off if a single movement is misunderstood. He stopped the car and placed both hands on the steering wheel. Fingers stretched, palms open, the universal pose of I'm not a threat that somehow still never seems to be enough. He rolled down the window and took a breath, long and steady. The way he had trained himself to breathe before stepping into danger zones overseas. Funny how danger found him here, in the place he was supposed to call home. Inside his mind, thoughts swirled that he never said out loud. Thoughts of friends he served with who never had to worry about traffic stops. Thoughts of medals he earned that officers like these would probably never ask about. Thoughts of his mother waiting for him, texting him joking reminders to hurry up so she could hug him and make him a real meal. He whispered to himself again, not loud, just enough to keep himself grounded, just enough to fight off the sting of humiliation that always came with this dance. A soldier who fought for a country that still couldn't see him as safe. A man who risked his life for freedom, yet wasn't free to drive through his own neighborhood without fear. The night seemed to hold its breath as he watched the driver's door of the police cruiser swing open. A shape stepped out. Heavy boots. Slow footsteps. A hand hovering too close to a weapon. The kind of posture that said this wasn't a conversation, it was a hunt waiting to begin. Marcus kept his hands on the wheel. He didn't blink. He didn't move. His heart thudded hard. Not because he was guilty of anything, but because history lived in moments like this. The kind of history passed down through stories whispered at kitchen tables. Stories that warned young black men how to stay alive. When the wrong officer walked up to the wrong window, the officer's shadow grew long as he approached. His other hand lifted a flashlight, shining it through the car as if Marcus was hiding danger in the air itself. The silence between them stretched thin and sharp. Marcus swallowed. He felt the dread, the heaviness, the cold realization that this night might turn into something he could never take back. Something that wasn't supposed to happen to a soldier coming home. Something that wasn't supposed to happen to anyone. The officer stepped closer, his hand tightening on the grip of his gun like he had already decided how this stop would go. The night didn't get louder, but it felt heavier, like the darkness itself leaned closer, waiting to see what would unfold. Marcus kept his hands on the wheel, fingers stretched, shoulders stiff, breathing slow enough to hide the tremor running through his chest. The first officer approached on his left, older, tall, face carved into something unreadable. He didn't look angry. He didn't look nervous. He looked detached, like this was just another box to check before his shift ended. But cold can be just as dangerous as rage. A second set of footsteps came from the right, faster, lighter, uneven, like the man didn't know what to do with his own energy. The younger officer moved with a twitch in his shoulders, the kind of twitch that comes from fear pretending to be authority. His flashlight darted across the car in quick, sharp movements, sliding across Marcus's face as if it were trying to blind him. The older officer asked for license and registration, but his voice didn't match the words. It wasn't a request. It wasn't even routine. It sounded like an accusation disguised as protocol. Marcus stayed calm. That calm didn't come from trust. It came from training, from knowing that panic only fed the beast. He greeted them politely, steady tone, careful words. He explained that he had just come home from deployment. His airport tags were still on his luggage. His uniform was still dusty. He even smiled a little, hoping it would soften the moment. But the officers didn't soften. They didn't listen. They didn't see a soldier. They saw a black man with a nice car at the wrong time of night. And once they made that choice, everything he said bounced off of them like rain hitting concrete. Their questions came fast, pointed, unnecessary. Where are you coming from? Why are you dressed like that? Is this your car? Why does your ID show another address? Each question had a tone under it. The same tone Marcus had heard too many times growing up. The tone that said, "We don't trust you." The tone that said, "You're already guilty." The tone that said, "We're not here to understand, you're here to explain yourself until we're satisfied." And men like these never got satisfied. The younger officer kept shining his flashlight into Marcus's eyes, making it hard to see, hard to think, hard to read his movements. That was the point. A little confusion makes an officer feel justified. A little discomfort makes a suspect look suspicious. Marcus blinked, jaw tightening, but he stayed still. The older officer moved a step back, circling slightly, hand brushing his holster as if waiting for an excuse. The younger one walked around the passenger side, inspecting the door, the wheel, the back seat, the trunk, all with the energy of someone hunting for trouble so he could say he found it. Marcus knew the pattern too well. He sensed the shift in their tone, the tightening in their posture, the subtle but deadly transition from curiosity to threat. Soldiers learn to read danger the way some people read books. They see it in breathing, stance, eye movement. Marcus saw it now. He saw the moment the situation stopped being a traffic stop and became a risk. He informed them, slowly and clearly, that he was reaching for his military ID. He moved his right hand a few inches, letting the motion be obvious and deliberate. That was supposed to help. That was supposed to diffuse things. That was supposed to show respect, cooperation, innocence. But the younger officer's voice cracked the air with panic. "Stop moving. Don't reach for anything." Marcus froze instantly. He raised both hands again. His breath quickened despite his best efforts to control it. He repeated that he was complying, voice trembling just enough to reveal the truth. He was scared. Not of guilt, not of consequences, of dying in his hometown while wearing the same uniform he wore in war zones. But fear doesn't protect black men. Compliance doesn't guarantee safety. Sometimes it only feeds the prejudice burning in someone else's chest. A neighbor stepped outside onto their porch, drawn by the flashing lights and the tense voices. They didn't speak. They didn't interfere. They simply lifted their phone and started recording because experience had taught them that footage sometimes became the only witness that told the truth. The younger officer shouted that Marcus was reaching. Marcus's hands were up. The camera saw it. The neighbor saw it. Marcus shouted back that he wasn't. But the younger officer's fear had built its own story, and that story didn't require proof. Then the moment snapped. 2 shots cut into the night, like knives. Marcus jerked forward, his body slamming against the steering wheel. The sound echoed across the houses, bouncing off the quiet street until it felt like the whole town was holding its breath. The neighbor gasped out loud, the phone shaking as they kept recording. Inside the car, Marcus slumped, his uniform staining darker by the second. His breaths were shallow and uneven, each one sounding like it might be the last. His hand slid off the wheel, but he stayed conscious, fighting through the pain, fighting the way a soldier does when the mission becomes survival. The younger officer stepped back, panic exploding across his face. He began shouting that Marcus had attacked him, his voice cracking, the lies spilling out before he could even think it through. The older officer didn't say a word. His eyes said everything. He knew it wasn't true. He knew what really happened, but knowing and admitting are two different things, especially when careers and loyalties sit on the line. Marcus blinked weakly, vision blurry, the world tilting. He tried to lift his head, but his strength was slipping through him like water through fingers. He wasn't gone, but he was close, too close. The neighbor whispered into their phone, shock filling every breath, capturing the image of Marcus fighting to stay alive as the officers argued over the lie they were building. And the night that started quiet and warm turned into something cold, brutal and unforgettable. Sirens sliced through the quiet morning. Paramedics skid to a stop in front of the house, their boots pounding the pavement as they rushed to Marcus, blood still warm on the concrete. They lift him carefully, desperately racing him toward the waiting ambulance. Every second feels stolen. Every heartbeat feels borrowed. Across the street, a neighbor's hands are shaking, but they hit upload anyway. The video goes live, and within minutes, the world explodes. It spreads like gasoline meeting flame, relentless, unstoppable, scorching everything in its path. The footage is brutal, unfiltered, unforgettable. A black soldier, in uniform, hands visible, complying, shot at close range like his service meant nothing. The internet reacts faster than any news anchor can. Veterans flood comment sections, outraged that one of their own was treated like an enemy on his own street. Black communities erupt with grief because it feels like history has repeated itself before anyone even had a chance to breathe. At the hospital, chaos becomes a language. Marcus's mother sprints inside and collapses at the sight of her son. Her wail is so raw it shakes the air, shakes the nurses, shakes the soul. His sister wraps her arms around her, trembling as doctors fight to keep Marcus alive. He is alive, but hanging on by a single thread. Outside, reporters swarm like locusts. Lights, microphones, shouting voices, everyone demanding answers. Police try to rewrite the story, crafting a version where fear excuses everything. But the video tells its own truth. Too clear, too raw, too undeniable. At the military base, commanders gather in a silent room. The screen glows. Marcus's body hits the ground on repeat. Their jaws tighten. Their fists curl. Their eyes burn. Because Marcus wasn't just another soldier. He was the one others trusted with their lives. A mentor, a protector. A man who had saved more people than the ones who'd hurt him. And now he was fighting for his own life because 2 officers saw his skin before they saw his uniform. Across the nation, grief turns into a storm. People chant Marcus's name in the streets. Candles fill sidewalks. Posters rise. Voices roar. The mayor is drowning in pressure. The police department is forced to respond. The officers are placed on leave as the town demands justice, louder than ever before. The emotional tone becomes fire, the kind that burns away every lie, every excuse, every disguise. By the end of this act, Marcus is stable, but unconscious, suspended between 2 worlds. Yet outside his hospital window, the world that ignored pain for too long is finally awake. And the military, they're not staying silent anymore. The streets tremble with protests. Voices rise like thunder. And while the nation shouts, the army moves. Not with chaos, not with rage, but with a sharp, controlled fury. A black SUV pulls into town. The door opens, and out steps General Patrice Monroe, a woman whose presence commands silence before she even speaks. She walks with purpose, boots clicking on the pavement, eyes scanning everything. No theatrics, no wasted motion, just power, quiet, disciplined, unshakable. She enters the precinct like she owns the oxygen in the room. Her voice is calm, but it slices through excuses like a blade. I want every body cam file, every report, every second of footage. Now, no one dares stall her. No one dares lie. Her investigative team fans out across the city. They speak to the neighbor who filmed the horror. They speak to Marcus's mother, still trembling from the shock. They speak to eyewitnesses whose voices break when they relive what they saw. They question officials who suddenly forget how to make eye contact, and piece by piece, the truth forms. The officers violated protocol, violated training, violated human decency. Every standard they were supposed to uphold broken in seconds. The military cannot prosecute civilian cops, but they can turn the nation's spotlight so bright that nobody can look away. And they do, loudly. General Monroe steps before the cameras, her uniform crisp, her jaw set, her spirit burning. She speaks from the chest, from experience, from centuries of unspoken stories. Sergeant Marcus Hill served this nation with honor. He protected lives without hesitation. He deserved dignity. He deserved respect. And what happened to him is unacceptable. Her tone stays even, but behind it is a controlled wildfire no one can ignore. Reporters fall silent. America listens. State investigators review the footage. The truth is undeniable. The younger officer is arrested, charged on multiple counts. The older officer tries to hide behind the same old script, "I feared for my life." But the military's evidence dismantles that story word by word. Marcus's case becomes national news, not a footnote, not just another headline, but a symbol, a wound reopened, a mirror held to a country still learning how to value black lives. The tone of this act is strength wrapped in sorrow, a collective refusal to stay silent, a reminder that even when justice stumbles, people will rise to make sure it keeps moving. Marcus lies unconscious in a dim hospital room. Machines beep softly. His chest rises unevenly beneath the sheets. Bandages wrap his side, stained with the memory of the bullets that never should have been fired. The world outside is roaring, but in here, everything is still. His mother sits by his bedside, holding his hand with both of hers, whispering prayers that shake her voice. His sister watches the hallway like a guard, as if danger could walk in at any moment. The room is filled with a quiet grief, but also a stubborn, unbreakable hope. Then a flicker, a breath, a twitch in Marcus's fingers. A nurse notices, calls the doctor. His mother's tears freeze mid-fall slowly, painfully. Marcus's eyes open. The world blurs into shapes, light, ceiling, movement, voices. He's alive, barely but alive. His mother breaks, collapsing onto his arm, sobbing with both relief and trauma that has no words. Marcus tries to speak, but the pain is too sharp. He can only whisper one thing, "Mum, I'm here." Outside the room, General Monroe waits with folded arms, her face steady but her eyes heavy with the weight of everything she's witnessed. When the doctor steps out and tells her Marcus is awake, something inside her unclenches. She walks in. She stands by his bed, not as a superior officer, but as a protector. Marcus blinks through the haze and manages a weak salute. She gently lowers his hand back to the bed. "You don't salute me," she says softly. "You just get better." His family steps aside as the general explains the national support pouring in. Veterans holding vigils, strangers donating to cover expenses, thousands marching with his name on signs. Marcus struggles to process it. He hadn't expected to survive, let alone become a symbol. He whispers, voice cracked, "I didn't want to be a headline. I just wanted to go home." General Monroe nods, her voice steady. "And you will. But first, the world needs to hear your truth." Marcus closes his eyes as the weight of that settles in. He didn't choose this fight, but it found him anyway. The same way it finds so many. The camera widens as the scene ends. Marcus breathing, family holding him, a community holding them, and a nation finally beginning to confront the truth it can no longer avoid.